Today we're going to be talking about chapter 27, section 1. It's called the Scramble for Africa. And how in many cases, European countries were establishing colonies. And these were based on the ideas of trade. Okay, let's set up a business in Ghana, West African coastal state. Some of their primary goods that we can utilize, slaves, gold, ivory, iron, etc., various crops. And so to benefit these European businesses, soldiers would come in to protect those businesses, and before you know it, they've established a government or a colony.
All right. Game of Risk. Who goes first?
I believe it's my turn.
All right.
I think I will invade India.
What? Again? You really want to go through this again?
Oh.
Seriously?
Not there.
You never change. He never changes.
I'll invade Ireland.
Really?
Again, yep. Good point.
Always the same with this guy.
I will invade Hong Kong, Sri Lanka, New Zealand, Australia, Egypt. I will probably skip my turn.
All right. Who's next? Boys, I'm going in the Middle East.
Typical.
No, that's not how the game works. You need to be beside the country you're attacking.
Yep. You just try and stop me, son.
Hey, wait a second. Whose troops are these in the Ukraine?
What troops? I don't see any troops.
Dimitri, are these yours?
I don't know what you're talking about.
We know they're yours.
I know nothing.
All right, boys, I'm pulling my troops out of the Middle East.
Hey, no, you can't just take your troops out whenever you want.
I'm not aware of that.
Jesus Christ. Okay, Germany, you're go.
Oh, nein, danke, I'm not playing. I get way too competitive. It brings out the worst in me. Okay, it's my turn. I want to invade Hispania.
Wait, you want to invade Spain?
Si.
I thought you were Spain.
I am not a Spanish. I am a Catalan.
Sorry. Hey, hold on, Britain. Why do you have troops in the middle of the ocean?
Oh, they're not. No, that's Gibraltar, and they're the Falklands.
Oh.
I just assumed they were mine. Sorry, is that weird?
Oh, it's Scandinavia, your go.
Okay, I'm thinking I'm going to raid Ireland.
You mean invade?
No, I mean pillage and plunder.
China, what's going on? You're only meant to start with 30 pieces.
Wait, bullshit.
And Switzerland, where's your army?
Oh, I do not have one.
What the hell are you meant to play the game?
I thought we were playing Monopoly.
Oh.
Are we not playing Monopoly?
I'm going to invade India.
That's America. India's the other way, you bloody moron. Oh, every bloody time with this guy.
Whose turn is it now?
Yeah, sure. I will invade Africa. Count me in.
Ich auch. Me too.
Africa.
Africa.
And while you are in Africa, I will invade Europe.
Right, that's it. Finish up. Time for bed.
Oh, Mum, we're nearly finished.
Will you come off? You've been at that for centuries.
Doomed up.
Hi, we're Four Arms and Hog. Thanks a million for watching. We have a new video every Thursday.
We are on tour in Ireland in 2018 in the following places.
Cork, Wexford, Galway, Dublin, Letterkenny.
Belfast. Cork. Oh, you said Cork.
Yeah.
Belfast. Ennis. Waterford. Mullingar.
Yeah, Mullingar's my one. And Limerick.
I murdered that.
Ruined it.
Hey, doomed up.
So, a little about Africa before European domination. First off, we'll start with imperialism. Just want to define this concept briefly. Imperialism is the domination of a weaker territory by a stronger one. Even that can result in the seizure of a country or a territory. The point is, stronger exploiting the weaker. And this can happen for any number of reasons. Let's start with missionaries. Okay, so your church wants to send someone to a place that has never made contact with a European country. Okay, that's great. You're going to go deep into the jungles. You're going to make first contact. That's awesome. And there's really cool stories about these missionaries making first contact with distant peoples. Here's the case of Jim Elliot. Jim Elliot and his wife were two young people, decided to be missionaries. They decided to go into a remote jungle region and make first contact. Guess what happened? Jim Elliot was brutally murdered. Okay, what happened next? Well, someone said, next time you guys do this, maybe you should bring some people to kind of keep an eye on things. Let's not get folks murdered. Okay, so what do? They hire some kind of security detail and they go with them. Men with guns. Okay, great. Next group of missionaries don't die. Awesome. They're setting up shop. They've got their house. They've got their stores. They've got their supplies and the men with guns. Fast forward a few decades. There's more shops, there's more Europeans, there's more people with guns. Fast forward a few more decades, and suddenly there's a European flag there. That's interesting. That's one way it often played out. Now, why do you think the men with guns are coming? Well, they're getting paid. But often, as we lead to greater investment, that sometimes, yes, was originally motivated by these missionaries, but often this leads to business interest as well. And I want to use the Congo as an example because it's probably the saddest story of all the stories of African colonization. King Leopold of Belgium authorized Henry Stanley to acquire land in the Congo. The Congo is one of the largest rivers in the world, and it flows through a region deep in the heart of Africa. And when Belgium acquired this land, they did so on the hopes that they would find diamonds, that they would find precious resources that could translate to great financial gain. King Leopold turned the Congo into a slave corporation. The entire country of the Congo was ran as a giant corporation which enslaved the people and killed millions to find these diamonds. It got so bad that the Belgian government had to take these lands away from the king. But while the genocide or slaughter of the Congolese is a dark stain on European colonization to the point where they actually had to take these lands away from the king, it didn't stop Europe from claiming many different lands in Africa. So, for example, this stamp celebrates the 100th anniversary of Henry Stanley and David Livingstone's meeting. So David Livingstone was another one of these missionaries. Had the best intentions. He just wanted to explore. He wanted to meet the people. He wanted to travel. And he had this mission to find the source of the Nile River. He's going to travel all the way up the Nile. He was going to find where it starts. To me, this was always a fascinating expedition. I'm like, wow, what a cool mission. I'm going to travel up the Nile. I'm going to meet all the people along the way. And then he was never seen again. He disappeared for years. They're like, where the heck did this guy go? If somebody kills him, that's bad because more men with guns and then problems. And come on, what happened with Congo? So Henry Stanley was sent to find him. And the two men were old friends, and they found each other. Stanley went on this years-long expedition to find David Livingstone, and he found him deep in the heart of Africa. And he had found the source of the Nile River. So cool. Now, why? First off, why bother? Why mess with Congo? Why go to Ghana? Why colonize these different regions? And, I've used that phrase, God, glory, gold, often. Sometimes it's just outright competition. Sometimes, for example, when the United States helped the Philippines become liberated against Spain in 1898, instead of actually helping them get their freedom, all we really did was take over the Philippines. And we ruled them as a territory. And the Philippines actually revolted against us and fought a war to try to win their independence from the United States. And you know what we did? We went in and started killing them by the tens of thousands. And the American government was a little concerned about some of the scary things that we were doing to these Filipinos, that in fact they brought a number of soldiers home. A number of these soldiers came from not too far where I grew up in Tennessee, and they interviewed them, and they said, why are you doing these horrible things to these Filipinos? And they said, you ever seen a Filipino? They're about yay tall, on average. They're dark skinned, and they speak a language called Tagalog. This is what the men told their interviewers. And they were like, have you ever heard Tagalog? Well, it's a guttural language. It's a series of clicking sounds. It doesn't sound like a language. It sounds like clicking. Like, really? You're going to tell me that a little tiny person going as a person. And that was the soldiers' rationale for brutalizing these human beings and doing terrible things to them. It was just outright racism. And there was also this idea called social Darwinism going around. It's that, well, okay, if natural selection leads to the betterment of a species, then survival of the fittest can also be applied to human society. That if these people can't deal with these European diseases, well then, okay, their deaths are going to benefit the species as a whole. So it's a very cold way to look at things. But social Darwinism was often used to justify horrible atrocities. But now, many factors were working in the favor of Europeans, not least of which was disease, certainly, but also technological innovations. Steam engine, building trains through these regions made it easier to harvest raw materials and bring them back to their European countries. The Maxim gun was an early version of the machine gun. When the Zulus, the famous Shaka Zulu warriors charged against the British, they would use these old tactics with spears and arrows, and the British had machine guns. So, obviously, who's going to win there? Europeans had medicines that the natives did not have access to. For example, Europeans did often encounter diseases in Africa that they weren't immune to, like malaria. But then soon after, European scientists developed a vaccine for malaria. But perhaps the greatest advantage to European conquerors was the cultural and ethnic divisions within Africa itself. Africa is a giant place. It is a continent. It is not a country. It is made up of 108 different spoken languages, many different cultures and tribes and nations of people. And so, had Africa ever truly united, they would have repelled the European invasion. Boom. That would have been it. But that's not how it went down. So I wanted to look at a couple primary sources here. This is from Cecil Rhodes. He said, and I quote, "I contend that we are the first race in the world, and the more of the world we inhabit, the better it is for the human race. It is our duty to seize every opportunity of acquiring more territory, and we should keep this one idea steadily before our eyes, that more territory simply means more of the Anglo-Saxon race, more of the best, the most human, the most honorable race the world possesses." What? This is absolutely racism used to justify the conquest of a weaker people. Guess who he was? Cecil Rhodes owned the De Beers Company. No, they didn't make beer. They made diamonds. They are the main producer of diamonds in the world. If you ever buy a diamond ring for a loved one, you're probably buying it from this guy's company. The same guy who said, and I quote, "The Anglo-Saxon race is the best." Yeah, that's where your diamonds come from, ladies. Sorry. So, didn't mean to burst your vision of diamond rings, but yeah. So anyway, why Africa? Well, to keep things simple, there's money to be made. There are diamonds in Congo. There is large deposits of gold in many different regions. And so many European companies like the De Beers family saw an opportunity to exploit and profit. And the greatest source of wealth in the African continent is raw materials, gold, diamonds, single crops that these companies would exploit and then develop or process back home. And, the plantation system took off in Africa. The mining industry took off in Africa to exploit all of these raw materials. Guess what? People fought back. And my favorite of the stories of resistance is Shaka. Shaka is the famous Zulu chief who built a strong, centralized state in 1816. and fought a series of wars against the British Empire. Now, the British, at the height of their power in the late 1800s, I mean, this is the time when they have the empire that stretches around the world. And the the Zulus, led by their chief Shaka, fought and won a series of wars, but were ultimately defeated. The Zulu nation was ultimately incorporated into the British Empire. And there was another group, a group of Dutch farmers who had seized land in Africa and established large farms, and the British went in to try to incorporate their farming territories into the empire, and it led to the Boer War. And the British tried to take their land, and the Boers eventually had to move away because the British won. And so these stories of resistance are important. But if you're a Star Wars fan, it's basically the story of the rebellion, except Darth Vader wins for a very long time. For example, King Shehuayu was ruler of his people, led his people in resistance against the European oppressors. But he was defeated, and he was driven away, and he died in exile.